I want to bring in Major Garrett now, who was at Trump's rally Thursday night. It looks like the crowd has cleared out, Major.
Yes, the rally's over. The crowd is cleared out. That's not atypical of Trump rallies. The crowds form early. They stay for the entire show. But when it's over, they head out. And that's exactly what's happened here. So it's us. It's a few people who are pushing brooms and cleaning up the floors, and I imagine the lights will be out any moment. So let's get to the part of the matter so I can get some dinner and they can shut down the lights.
Sounds good. Break down exactly what happened here, because we had been hearing it was a unity speech. He said that at least a couple minutes in that he was going to lay out some objectives of his administration, and then it just sounded like a victory lap in the end.
It was a victory lap. Trump triumphalism was fully on display, and the crowd loved it. The crowd ate it up because, as the president-elect said over and over, this is your victory as much as anyone else's. And there were certain aspects of tonight's thank you rally that were very reminiscent to my ears of rallies I saw all across the country. The same mockery of Washington-based elites, mockery of the news media, and in something of a departure because it hadn't yet been achieved, the president-elect spent a lot of time unspooling, watching the election returns come in on November 8th and explaining how he delighted in the fact that all of the projections and all the naysayers and all the pundits were proven not just slightly wrong, but abjectly wrong. And Trump and this audience immersed themselves joyously in sort of recalling that election night and proving everyone wrong. So all of that was a rich part of Trump triumphalism. But there were also aspects of tonight's speech that are worth, I think, noting. I think what you heard tonight at the early parts of the speech were contours of an emerging inauguration address where the president-elect said this country's got to come together, Republicans and Democrats have got to work together, and there has to be unity around a common understanding of what America is and not the relentless subdividing of America either into racial groups, sub-interested groups on political ideology, or any other division within the country. That there has to be a common understanding of what unites the country as opposed to a constant dissection, in the president-elect words, of what divides us or separates us. Those, to me, sounded like the thematic outlines of an inauguration address. And the other part of it was, he will be an economic nationalist. He will do everything in his power as President of the United States through trade policy, regulatory policy, and tax policy to look out for the American worker. And every coin flip that's going to cross his desk will be decided on the basis of what he believes and his economic advisors believe will be best for American workers, particularly those in the manufacturing sector. So those things were not only consistent with his underlying campaign themes, but amplifications of those themes that matter much more now, Jamie, because they're no longer theoretical. They're no longer purely rhetorical. These are now action plans, as the president-elect described them himself. And those are action plans. He is holding these very thank you rallies to build a groundswell of political support so he can use that to intimidate, cajole, persuade, whatever adjective you want to drop in there, once the negotiations with Congress begin.
Major, I want to ask you quickly about retired Marine General James Mattis. You had been reporting that he likely was going to be the Secretary of Defense nominee under President-elect Donald Trump. Sounds like that's what's happening, even though Donald Trump kept teasing that the announcement wouldn't be made until Monday. Tell us about him. I liked Donald Trump introduced him as Mad Dog Mattis, but you know, he really has a reputation for being praised for a number of battles, including the one in 2004 in Iraq and Fallujah. But there's also some interesting points about him about the confirmation process, that there could be a hiccup there.
Well, there is a wrinkle involved, and it is a wrinkle that is established in federal law. There's only been one previous general who has led the Department of Defense. That was the first Defense Secretary, George C. Marshall. And after that, a federal law was drafted that said, you know, if you're a retired general, it's probably not a good idea for you to lead the Defense Department, because that is historically, and by congressional prerogative, a civilian leading the military. And so the idea has been there has to be a pretty exceptional military leader to lead the Defense Department. So the law currently says if you're a retired general and within 7 years of your retirement, you cannot be the Defense Secretary. unless Congress specifically waives that federal law, which is what will have to happen because General Mattis left the Marine Corps in 2013. For the last week or so, the Trump transition team has been having regular conversations with House Speaker Paul Ryan, but most especially Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on this very topic. This would be in theory, filibusterable item in the United States Senate. So they wanted to make sure that they could not only obtain the consent from Republican leaders in Congress to obtain this waiver, but navigate it through a potential filibuster in the United States Senate. The assurances have been given to the Trump transition team that this can be done, and that was the final hurdle for General Mattis to get the nomination that Trump, somewhat to the surprise of his transition advisors, announced here in Cincinnati tonight.
I think those transition advisors are used to surprises, and they should be used to many more coming, Major Garrett.
So am I.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate the time.